In a paradigm of breakthroughs, it's possible to actually untrigger your triggers and you unlearn them. You reverse engineer and unlearn them. So this is no longer resilience. It's actually the capacity in real time to be able to navigate. You're not adapting, you're navigating something, and what derailed you in the past is not no longer derailing you. You're now free. It's my value proposition ultimately to people is freedom and power.
Before we dive back into today's conversation, I want to share something important. This episode includes a paid partnership with BetterHelp, a platform designed to make starting therapy easier. I know from my own journey as a leader and entrepreneur that life can sometimes feel overwhelming. There are seasons where stress, uncertainty, and pressure build up, and you need a safe space to process it all. That's where therapy comes in. Therapy isn't only for people facing clinical challenges. It's a space to reflect, grow, and find better ways to manage stress, relationships, and personal goals. It takes courage to seek help, but it's also one of the smartest investments you can make in your mental and emotional well-being. That's why I'm proud to highlight BetterHelp. With BetterHelp, you simply fill out a short questionnaire and get matched with a credentialed therapist in just a couple of days. If the first match doesn't feel like the right fit, you can easily switch therapists at no extra cost until you find someone who truly connects with you. Inside the platform, you'll also find tools like journaling and group sessions on different topics that can support your growth. And with over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 Trustpilot rating, BetterHelp is a platform you can rely on. So if you feel like you'd benefit from talking to a therapist, visit betterhelp.com/KingDames. That's betterhelp.com/KingDames to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Once again, this is a paid partnership with BetterHelp, and I encourage you to take that first step if you've been thinking about it. Sometimes the best investment you can make is in yourself.
Welcome to the King Dems podcast, where we share the stories of extraordinary people and dissect hot, relevant topics that shape our world. From visionary leaders to trailblazing creatives, we uncover the mindset, strategy, and grit behind greatness. Whether it's business, culture, or personal growth, we ask the real questions. This isn't just conversation, it's transformation. The King Dems podcast. Your next breakthrough starts here.
Music licensing reimagined.
Real life, ladies and gentlemen, you're once again welcome to the King Dems podcast, Diary of a CFO, and the $1 Million Blueprint podcast, 3-in-1. Why? Because today I've got a very, very, very important guest, Triple VIP. Make welcome, fighting out of New Jersey, United States of America, Teddy Santos. And when the action begins, the co-host in the studio is Noella, the world best sales expert, Rook. You once again welcome Teddy, not Teddy Pendergrass, but Teddy Santos. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right. You only forgot one line. Let's get ready to rumble.
Let's get ready to rumble. Let's go. Well, it is really, really amazing having you on the podcast. You're somebody that we appreciate beyond words, and it's great to have the great philosophers of your time, the great minds of your time. It's a privilege. You know, growing up, I did read a lot of the ancient philosophers and wish I could have conversations with them. But now I'm privileged, right? And now the stars have aligned. Everyone is in blue. Well,
Yes.
so sit back, while we're giving you your flowers, right? You are the leadership disruptor, turning chaos into breakthroughs. Champions today, our guest is a powerhouse in leadership transformation, a man who doesn't just talk about breakthroughs, he engineers them. Ted Santos is the CEO of Turnaround Investment Partners and the creator of the Disruptive Leadership Model. He has spent over 2 decades transforming struggling companies into industry leaders and helping CEOs master chaos, build resilience, and create what others call impossible. From Wall Street boardrooms to innovation labs, Ted has one mission: to turn chaos into breakthroughs. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's make welcome the leadership disruptor himself, Ted, the one and only Santos.
Thank you.
I'll
Thank
leave
you.
I'll leave
When
it in the safe hands of my co-host because I'm too pumped for this. I have to pay gas prices because I'm gassed up.
So, Ted, I'm so happy to have you here. It was lovely meeting you the other day and getting a little bit of insight into who you are as a leader and what really uh, makes you an expert in chaos, basically. It's amazing to hear. Um, you're known for our audience who may not know who you are, you're actually known for helping leaders create problems intentionally. And to a lot of people, that's a really radical concept. What inspired the birth of the disruptive leadership model that you are in charge of?
So first, I want to say thank you both. I also enjoyed our conversation a few days ago. So my pleasure to be here and to have this kind of conversation, especially with people who can appreciate counterintuitive ways of seeing the world or counterintuitive mindset. And I would say I learned at a very young age that disruption, breakdowns, problems, chaos uh, could have the effect of pulling extraordinary out of people. So I learned that at a very young age.
Mm.
That's amazing. Is there maybe when you say you learned that at a really young age, is there maybe a memory or like a job you had or maybe a relationship with a family member that kind of sparked that early on?
When I say young, I mean like really young. I was 6 years old
Mhm.
and I saw my mother run with two broken legs.
Oh, wow.
Right. So uh, it was New Year's Eve and she had taken at the time. So I'm the oldest of four children now, but at
Mhm.
that time there were only three. And she took us to New Year's Eve party at her mother's house in the neighboring town. And she comes home. I don't know. It's dark, so I'm asleep in the front seat. And normally we would have been in the back seat, but she drove her brother and his wife home and figured she didn't want to wake the children up, so she just drives home. And it could be 4, 5, 6 in the morning, and I wake up and the tree is wrapped. I'm sorry, the car is wrapped around a tree. And so I'm sitting right next to her in front of the radio. So I'm cut, nose broken, blood, knee gashed, and my brother and sister we're all crying. And I look over to my mother and she's gone. So I'm just tall enough to look over the dashboard and I watch her run. I mean, I had seen my mother run and she ran just like always. And she runs home. My father's home with his cousin. They come out the house in no time, pick us up, take us to the hospital. And that's that. But I learned my mother had two broken legs and a broken arm, and I saw her run.
Mhm.
So that event changed my life because I was thinking, if she can run with two broken legs, and it was about 100 yards from home, uh, and I saw it, I thought human beings have something really special in them, and we just don't know how to get it. So how do you get that? So at 9 years old, I start studying human behavior. I wanted to understand people. I also wanted to understand women and dating. So I studied a lot about women and biology and sexuality and dating and what women liked and didn't like. And then I started studying all people and you start studying neuroscience. And I'm just, a young guy. I'm not even in college yet. And I'm learning all of these things. And I didn't see it as research. It was just me searching for this thing that I'm going to pull out. And at 11, I start working out. I wanted to have cut. I wanted to build this body that could do great things. And I'm 5'6". I weighed 143 pounds and I was dunking basketballs, which is not normal for
Mhm.
someone my height. And I played US football and I played the position of the biggest guy on the field, which was the defensive nose guard. And the way I trained is I trained to run with broken legs.
Mhm.
So I had that mindset from 6, and, I'm researching things where the woman lifts the car off of her child, you hear all of these miraculous things, and you know that people are doing them, and I witnessed it watching my mother run, so I know there's something there, and I'm committed, like, highly committed to pulling it out, and my training is around running with broken legs, being able to do that now and not later, and so that gave me the mindset to train through sports to be a high performer, and it spilled over into other things, and then the second major disruption happened when I was 21, and I received a phone call, and that call changed my life forever. And what I was told on that call is both my parents were no longer alive. And so now at 21, my brother's 19 and my two sisters were 12 and 16. I'm taking over the family. And I still have that mindset of running with broken legs. And what I learned about leadership in the face of chaos and disruption, and what I saw my brother and sisters be able to do, this was just more confirmation that in the face of disruption, chaos, breakdowns, problems, that people have something in them and they can do extraordinary. I saw my sisters do extraordinary things, things that you wouldn't expect a 12 or 16-year-old to do. And kind of fast forwarding, when I became a chief operating officer, literally all of those things that I learned from my parents' death were transferred and being able to lead other people. How do you coach people up to do things they don't know how to do? And how do you turn uh, a mediocre or a good team into an extraordinary, a really high performing team? And so high performing that they don't even need you unless it's like really important. So self contained. And when you have that, when you understand as a leader how to create those problems, first, how to coach your people up so that they can be able to effectively navigate the chaos without falling apart, uh, it allows you as a leader to look at other possibilities that can be disruptive, and your team has the capacity and nimbleness to be able to take on new possibilities that turn into breakthroughs.
So, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that about your past, about your story, about the roots of really where this first type of belief system came about to the point where you've learned how to completely transform chaos into leadership. This is such a valuable skill, not just for this is a skill, and I said this the other day too, that just as individuals, this is something that as individuals we try so hard to figure out how to pinpoint the chaos in our lives and kind of transmute it into this successful energy or something that actually helps us instead of hurting us, or something that moves beyond that framework or even maybe that mindset that we were in at the time that that chaos came about in our lives. And you're able to actually do that for entire businesses. You're able to completely restructure their framework, and that is just such an impactful skill that I would just say is invaluable, 100%. How overall, when we're speaking about leaders in general, so maybe across any type of situation, any type of industry, how would you say leaders can reframe chaos as a creative tool rather than a threat?
Stop reframing. It's one
Mhm.
of the worst things you can, because what we're talking about is a paradigm shift. Running with
Mhm.
broken legs, that's a paradigm shift. Um, uh, serving as in a leadership capacity when your parents die. Are you all familiar with Malcolm Gladwell?
Yeah, the
I
guy, the
am
guy
not.
that wrote the book Outlier.
Right.
Yeah,
Outlier,
yeah,
Tipping
yeah.
Point. He
Tipping
has
point.
another
Yeah,
book, David and Goliath. It's worth
yeah,
reading.
yeah.
Mhm.
So
I've read
in
two of his
David and
books.
okay. And Outlier is really good
I
because
love that
the
book.
sort of punchline is
Yeah.
if you practice something for 10,000
10,000
hours, you
hours.
achieve
Yeah.
mastery.
Yes.
Uh, so if you think about, me starting to study human behavior at 9, by the time I was 18, I probably had 10,000 hours of
Mhm.
study and research and understanding human behavior. Um, but in his book, David and Goliath, he talks about how the premise is with David and Goliath, David's disadvantage served as an advantage for him in the long run because he wasn't as big as David, as Goliath. Sorry, he had to develop weaponry
Mhm.
that would support him to beat an opponent that was significantly larger,
Mhm.
and so his smaller size gave him the advantage of intelligence to use a weapon, a slingshot, and he defeated Goliath. So in that book, he talks about how losing a parent around the age of 20 is an unfortunate situation that is no different than David's disadvantage. That he said people who lose a parent develop these leadership skills. And one of the things that comes out of it is the loss of a parent creates chaos. So when that person is leading a company, they will they will see the chaos in the company as not as extreme as the chaos they dealt with the parent's death. And I remember one specific day because this company was growing so fast, it was falling apart. They couldn't sustain it. And I remember standing away from everyone and saying, "Well, I've seen chaos. I've seen massive chaos when my parents died, and I worked through that, and this is not even as extreme as that, and I'll definitely be able to work through this." So it gave me this sort of stable foundation to not lose focus of why I was there to lead a company. So, part of that, I'm saying, you don't wanna reframe it.
Mhm.
You want to be able to confront it and go through it. You don't wanna try and make it something that's more digestible. "Oh, this feels better. Let's call it a challenge," or it's chaos. It's a breakdown. It's a problem. And some of those come that you don't see coming, like a pandemic or an economic crisis. And if you're more nimble to intentionally create chaos and problems, then when something comes from the competition, from the economy, from a pandemic or some other global event, you are in a better position to be able to navigate that than someone who is just, we always did it this way and we know how to do it and we're good. And then a disruption comes and it's like what you used to do is obsolete. Now what do you do? So you are then you're at a disadvantage and you'll have to play catch up with the person or the organization that's much more nimble.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
reframing uh shrinks you as a leader.
Mm,
It's because then it becomes something you're already, once you say I have to reframe it, you're already talking about avoiding something, and there's
right.
no power in avoiding anything. I mean, my work, a lot of it is very much about going head on and dealing with things, instead of trying to, well, let's figure out a positive affirmation to make us all feel better. It's not about feelings. The cold thing to say is facts are not feelings.
Mhm.
I mean, feelings are not facts. Sorry, feelings are not facts. They're just feelings that you have, and they
Yeah.
will derail you.
Uh, I really appreciate what you talked about, you know, the resilience that you build from creating chaos intentionally. And of course, you spoke about the pandemic, right? And it reminds me of what I was doing at the time of the pandemic. I was working with PwC, that's the world's second largest accounting firm. And before the pandemic, we were already discussing the possibility of, remote working. And I was one of the big proponents of, that style of working. I love remote working,
Mm.
right? And there was this team at PwC called BCM, Business Continuity Management. So They create strategies, you know, for the continuity of the business, even in the face of, what you call an act of God, you know, crisis, economical crisis, political crisis, or whatever crisis, right? The business has to continue. And I remember they were testing the possibility of remote working. I was one of the people who did the beta testing. We're working from a hotel, accommodation, working from home, and all. And we tried to test the disruptions, right? What happens if
Mm,
there's disruption to the Wi-Fi at the office, right? We have a backup, right? Uh, we also gave the all staff members, I think, backup internet for them to use in their homes, right? So we never knew the pandemic was coming. So when the pandemic hit, it was just plug and play. We're all just working from home. It just felt like then nothing happened. And a lot of the competition were adversely affected, you know, by the pandemic. I got promoted in that same year that the pandemic happened, and I think I even bought uh, I think I bought a Mercedes SUV in that same year. It just felt like
mm,
when there's a casting down for others, there's a lifting up for me, just like the Bible says. But the thing is, it comes with being prepared for these disruptions, right? And I think that is like a classic organizational example of what your body of work strongly stands for.
very good story. And I'd also like to distinguish something. I think when most people say resilience, they're talking about an event happens and they recover. Uh, what you just described is not resilience. That's preparedness. That's
Mm.
training. You all trained for a pandemic. You didn't
Mhm,
know it, but you
mhm.
trained for it. And it's no different than an athlete that trains. Uh, a guy like Michael Jordan trains to have three defenders on him and still be able to score.
Mhm.
Okay.
So it's resilience is recovery. It has its value, but my work is really about being
Uh,
able to navigate in real time and go through the eye of the storm.
I think I sort of disagree with the definition of the bounce back when it comes to resilience because I have the word resilience up here, AI overview on Google, right? It says
Right,
resilience is the ability to cope with adversity and to bounce back from stressful situations, trauma, or misfortune, right? It
right.
can also refer to a material's capacity to resume its original shape after being deformed. So, in psychological contexts, resilience involves developing behaviors, thoughts, and actions that help you to adapt to change and stress. So, I think people look at the other half of the word, just a bounce back, but it is also about, coping and thriving through adversity. So it's more like you have an uh, elasticity basically, right, of the material, and it's able to withstand
Mm,
pressure. That's my own definition of resilience. I hope
yeah.
I'm not being misunderstood.
No, I get it, and I'm asking you to consider I'm not saying that.
Okay. Yeah, and of course, I'm trying to define properly in what context I'm using resilience. So the ability to adapt, and thrive through adversity, not just about
Right,
bouncing back.
right. So when you talk about paradigm shifts, when you talk about adaptation, you're talking about you have an existing paradigm
Mhm.
and you can adapt within that paradigm
Yes,
and you can make that paradigm better or
yes.
you can recover. You can do more of it
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
or you can do something different, what you've
mm-hmm,
adapted.
hmm.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay,
We're talking about two very different worlds.
okay.
You're talking about the world of improvement
Yeah.
and improvements have a place,
Mhm.
but when you talk about intentionally creating breakdowns, that's not an improvement.
So let's kind of walk through the process that you're talking about, that you're an expert on, that has shaped businesses from, the point where they're falling apart to the now they can thrive. Now they can thrive. Can you walk us through maybe a real life turnaround story to where we're embracing chaos and it led to the extraordinary results? Let's talk about the breaking point, how we had to embrace chaos, strategic disruption, and obviously the results. But I think that's going to help a lot too. To give us some more insight, give us a real life example of your plan in action.
Sure. So, improvements, and that's the paradigm that we're given. We're
Mhm.
given the paradigm where, okay, we want to make this better. If that doesn't work, we'll do it differently. And if that doesn't do it, we'll just do more of what we've been doing and that will make it better. So it's taking what you know and stacking on that something more, better, or different. And so perhaps the best way to start the path of this conversation is to for me to engage the two of you with a question. Uh, my question is, can you give me an example of something you both know?
The alphabet.
Great, perfect. No, no, that's so perfect. It's
Mhm.
just really simple, elegant. Do you want to add anything to that or something you know?
I know nothing. I'm Jon Snow. Whoa, alphabets are simple. Okay, let's say numbers.
Perfect. So you know numbers, you know the alphabet.
Mhm.
We can I can comfortably say you both know how to speak English. And so these are things that you know. Now give me an example of something you don't know and you know that you don't know it.
Mm, I know that I don't know how to speak fluent German.
Perfect. Perfect.
Hmm, I don't want to copy that example. Um, I know that I don't know the tribes that exist in Costa Rica, but I know even then.
Perfect. Good. Well, and if Noella, you wanted to learn German, there are resources. There are plenty of places you
Mhm.
can go, hire a teacher. You can learn German. You can go to
Right.
Germany. There are many things. And if you want to know the tribes in Costa Rica, you can look it up on the internet, or you can go to Costa Rica. And
Mhm.
damn, what's the name of that tribe? I actually lived in Costa Rica, so uh, there was a guy. I think he was trying to marry me off to a woman in one of these tribes because her husband died prematurely. So he was like, "Oh, this guy's a really good worker." But anyway, so now another example I'm going to ask the two of you to give me. This is an important one.
Mhm.
Give me an example of something you don't know and you don't even know you don't know it.
That's
Nothing. Because
right,
I don't know that I don't know it, so I don't know it.
because that's something that we would only have if we had an extended amount of awareness. So now we're at a point where we're talking about having no awareness of the subject or awareness of the gap or awareness of what would come after if we had awareness of either of those.
Perfect. And that is the domain of breakthroughs.
Mhm.
So the domain of improvement happens where you don't know it and you don't know it. So you
Right.
can go learn German, you can improve your knowledge, you can make improvements. The paradigm of breakthroughs, it's in The things you don't know, and you don't even know you don't know it. So
Mhm.
they are worlds apart. And the language of that domain is not the same as improvement. So what one of the challenges and most breakthrough initiatives fail in organizations. Most people do not achieve breakthroughs because most people are taking the paradigm that we were given about adapting and more, better, different, and they impose that and try to get to what they don't know, and don't even know they don't know it.
Mhm.
And it won't work. It's like trying to make a horse that flies as opposed to creating an entirely new paradigm
Mhm.
of flying machines. You
So,
both with me? You both with me? I just that's just a start. You asked me for an example, but
yeah. No,
I'm
I'm definitely with you, um, because I kinda wanna give an example. Paradigm shifting, it's actually a topic for a lot of people who even study, not just in business or, any type of belief shifting or manifestation. And there's different spiritual work and things like that where paradigm shifting comes up. Um, I had a coach at one point, and when she speaks about paradigm shifting, she is kind of saying we are so used to focusing on the things in the boat, which I guess would be beliefs, our beliefs, and then the actual
mm,
paradigm is the actual boat. But if we're not, there's no way for us to be aware of what the boat is just by trying to bring more awareness to what's in the boat.
okay.
So
I
it's
can yeah. So
it,
the boat is like the context. Like if you had a bowl and then you put fruit in it, that's the
mhm,
content. But the bowl itself is the context that
right.
holds content. Right. So creating and sometimes creating a new context can work, and that could be a way that people say they reframed. But
Mhm,
what I'm getting at is there is a mindset and a language that's more analogous to running with broken legs. It's just
mhm,
counterintuitive. You don't just go break your legs and say, "I'm going to go run." It's
right.
just it doesn't make sense, except there's a mindset, and there's a guy named Stephen Cotter. He's written a book, The Rise of Superman and Stealing Fire, and they're talking about the flow state. Do the two of you know what the flow state is?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that they learned is that when people are in the flow state, the frontal lobe shuts down. And that's the frontal lobe is like the conductor of the orchestra. It tells each part of the brain what to do. Well, if that shuts down and the rest of your brain is still performing and has you run with broken legs or has you do something in sports that you would describe as an outer body experience and you can't explain how you did it, you just did it. That's the neuroscience that they've been studying, and it's the frontal lobe that shuts down. So all you could say your kind of your identity, the you that knows what you can and cannot do is no longer functioning in a flow state. So you
Mhm,
don't know what your limits are. You don't know that you can't run with broken legs. You don't even consider that. And there are things that you know about yourself that you don't even know that you don't know about yourself. There's so much you don't know about yourself,
Mhm.
and we'll talk about that. So uh, I can tell you, I can, if you want, I can tell you two stories. One is how I became an accidental chief operating officer. That wasn't on purpose. It was almost a joke
mhm,
that I did that. So I was hired at a transportation logistics company as a salesman, and in 9 months I tripled my income, and the other salesmen were doing very well. So the company was now growing so fast that it was bursting at the seams. They couldn't manage the growth. And every week there were two owners. One was the president, and one was the CFO. The CFO was the money guy, and uh, the president met with the sales force every week. And every week I was saying, hey, Mike, you know, if we take this guy in operations and put him here, and if we put this structure in, if we do this, every week I was making suggestions. Or, Mike, what do you think if we do this? And one day he said, you know what? I'm sick of you telling me how to run my company. Do you think you can do a better job? And I said, yes. And he laughed and he said, you know what? I'm going to give you a chance to do that. I'll give you 30 days. And in 30 days, if you don't do a better job than me, never want to hear another word of you from you about how to run my company. So I said, you have to do one thing. No one can go to you with their problems, and you have to tell everyone I'm in charge, and they can't go to you. They have to come to me. So he did that. And in 2 weeks, he said, the job is yours. I don't need 30 days. And it's because I was stabilizing. So you could see in 2 weeks that the tumultuous growth, and sometimes we lost clients, that started to calm down. Now, I had an advantage because before that, I was a sales trainer. And as a
Mhm.
sales trainer, uh, you do a lot of role playing. And we specifically trained people in the psychology of sales and dealing with acrimonious prospects. So, how do you deal with conflict with a prospect and still close the deal? So, uh, where I started with my people, and also I was extracting from my parents' death. So, a lot of what I developed in my parents' death became now relevant. Uh, One of the things that I did was when people came to me, I didn't solve their problem the way the president did. I would ask them, "What would you do if I wasn't here?" They go to, well, I go to Mike. Well, you can't do that any longer. So what would you do? And so we'd have a short conversation, and I'd ask more questions, and they'd go back and solve it themselves. And then they'd come to me and say, "Hey, I already know you're going to ask me this list of questions. I've already thought them through, and this is where I'm stuck." And either I ask another question, but I would engage them and they say, huh, didn't think of that. And they're gone. Uh, Simultaneously, I knew as a salesman that we made promises to clients and they were not always delivering on them. They were kind of lax. So I raised the bar in accountability. Do you know what we promised this client? Do you know why aren't we delivering that? Why aren't we delivering that? And they started taking that seriously, and instead of me going to them and asking, why aren't you taking care of this client? They actually would come to me and say, I know you're going to ask about this, but I promise it's already handled. And then few things happened. They didn't come to me with problems because they developed their own capacity to solve problems. And the promises to clients were now being exceeded
Mhm.
on a consistent basis. And the other thing that was very important was the culture was a culture where when we made a mistake, they would think up, and they thought it was funny. I actually saw it. They would think up a lie to tell the client. And they would spend all this time, you know what I told the client this time? Ha ha ha. I saw that as a salesman. I said, from now on, we tell the truth. We make a
Mhm.
mistake. Whoever made the mistake, you call the client and you tell the client the error you made and how you are correcting it. And one woman laughed and said, and then we'll be out of business. So, uh, she started role playing. She said, well, what if the client says this? What if this happens? And we role played. And she said, that doesn't sound like it's going to work, but you're the boss. I'll do what you said. And next week she said, well, it worked. That was luck. What if next time this happens? So there was a lot of role playing, and I would do it in front of everyone. And what it did is the role playing gave them a new way of looking at managing problems with clients. And soon they didn't need me unless it was really an emergency. And when they said the client wants to speak to someone in charge, I'm like, no, what's the problem? Did you do this? Did you do that? And they'd go handle it. Or sometimes you really do have to speak to the client. And I would do it in front of them so that they could see how I handled it, and that way now they had a greater capacity for how to engage clients. I'm saying all this to say it's just saying we're going to be like a Nike commercial and just do it is not a great idea for creating breakthroughs. You really do have to coach your people up. You really have to train them to be able to handle what's happening now and what's possible in the future. So with that company, uh, they went from coming to me asking for problems and then saying, I know you're going to ask these questions, to, hey, 2 weeks ago, had this problem, partly our fault, partly the client's fault. Here's how I handled it. The client loved how we handled it so much that they picked up the phone and called one of their clients and sent one of their clients to us. Now my clients are selling for us because
Mhm.
my operations team is like a special forces that can handle just about anything, which now means myself as a leader and the president are in a better position to go create new services for the clients and not be worried that our people won't be able to handle it. In fact, they will embrace it and say, bring us more. So that transformed, you know, me as an accidental COO transformed the culture. I coached people up and 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 I stabilized the company that was growing out of control and increased the growth rate that allowed us to go after new kinds of clients that drove revenue and allowed us to like quadruple in revenue. So that wasn't our normal trajectory. We were actually on a course we were going to crash and burn at the rate we were going. It was unsustainable, the growth we had. That's a great problem to have. It was just unsustainable.
Amazing, amazing. I would say I'm gonna kick it over to my co-host to go into the next section for us. Um,
Mm, the mindset
because I know
behind.
that it's about leaning into uncertainty, but it's also about paradigm shifting. So would you say that your expertise, if the company doesn't know what they don't know,
Mm.
that we leverage you finding that out, or you leverage finding out what they don't know that they don't know, and then you're training them on that?
Sure. So part of it is what derails you. What are your blind spots?
Mhm.
And so, I've already mentioned how we have a language for adaptability and resilience and all those things. And we want to make that fit into a paradigm of intentional breakthroughs.
Mhm.
Um, you and your past is what will get in the way. So, I had a client, guy was a CEO, Ivy League educated, definitely high IQ, uh, and running a great business, and it's growing really well. One of his challenges was to grow even faster into that next level and get him out of the weeds was he was going to have to hire someone who's maybe smarter than him or more capable as a leader so that he can step back and stay at the helm of the wheel instead of being involved in operations. And what we found is what got in the way was an incident that happened when he was 5 years old. He's 5 years old. I think he's a middle child of three, and he's the only child in the car, and his parents are in the front seat. He's in the back, and his parents are having an argument. And the mother says, "Stop the car," and she gets out the car, and she's really upset with the husband, and he's really angry with his father now. And he wants to save his mother. So he opens the door and runs out the car and crosses the street. And he told me he didn't even look to see if cars, he said he could have literally been run over, but he didn't. So as a 5-year-old, his interpretation is I was a hero and my dad was a bully. And I saved my mom from the bully by being the hero. What that turned him into as a leader was a hero and a bully.
Mhm.
because he's the guy who felt like he had to do everything. And so if he hired someone that was smart, he would micromanage them. He would technically be a bully to them. So he would be reliving this 5-year-old in him. So he's aware that that incident happened, but he doesn't distinguish how it's running his life as a guy in his 50s. And even though he's highly intelligent, Ivy League educated, um, and doing a good job, he's stifling the growth of the company to its next level. So what it allowed for is him to be able to bring on uh, more qualified or higher performing people. And they were able to open a completely new division because this was a company that was manufacturing food. And they had for generations been manufacturing food under their own brand. They had their own brand. Well, they opened a new division that was the breakthrough, that they were now co-manufacturing and making uh, foods for other people under a completely different brand. It wasn't even their brand. They were just making it for someone who went out into the world and sold it. And that allowed them to take on, that allowed them um, to bring on about 20% in new revenues of untapped revenues that they never would have gotten, and brought on the largest client they ever had in the company's history, which was about 90-year-old company at the time.
Mhm.
But that was a huge breakthrough. And what that breakthrough did is it allowed them to make products for others. So it created an entirely new R&D that allowed them to make things that their current equipment would have never made, and it was more profitable per square inch. So it and they had a plant that was lying dormant that they didn't know what to do with. They were either going to sell it or something, but now this place was a breakthrough in revenue, it was a breakthrough in products, and it also gave them a new name in the marketplace as innovators. But it was a 5-year-old incident that was holding him back, and most people don't see that. Most people, and I'll tell people up front, "Look, the 5-year-old in you is still running your life," and they'll say,
Mhm.
"You're kidding. You know who I am." But when I walk them through I call it a mindset technology.
Mhm.
When you walk them through the mindset technology, they start to distinguish and they can see how, "Oh my god, this has been affecting my entire life, and I just couldn't see it."
Mhm. I
So
think you
part
left.
of that the well, part of what happens is that 5-year-old will derail you when you start dealing with chaos, uncertainty, anything that reminds you of what happened in the past, and being aware of it just isn't enough, because being aware doesn't give you the tools to actually go through it and be able to navigate and come out on the other side where it's no longer running your life. But before you have the tools, it's running your life, and you're just aware that something happened. So, awareness is in that paradigm of things you don't know and you don't know, and you can improve it.
Mhm.
But in a paradigm of breakthroughs, it's possible to actually untrigger your triggers, and you unlearn them. You reverse engineer and unlearn them. So this is no longer resilience. It's actually the capacity in real time to be able to navigate. You're not adapting, you're navigating something, and what derailed you in the past is not no longer derailing you. You're now free. It's my value proposition ultimately to people is freedom and power.
Hmm. There's a lot to unpack, right? But I want to talk about fear, control, and the cost of avoidance. Because
But
you
what was the last word? Fear, control, and what?
and the cost of avoidance.
Avoidance. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
You talk about people's traumatic past haunting them and
Hmm.
affecting, influencing their current behavior, attitude, you know, patterns. And you reminded me of somebody that I know. they lost a loved one, many years ago, when we were younger, and did not end up attending the funeral of that loved one, and it sort of affected them, right? And they just thought in their head, oh, this person traveled, and that was the way to cope with the loss. Uh, Anytime talks about that person, like it brings back negative emotions, right? And this person now started using avoidance as a means of coping with stressful situations. And it has led to like many delusional attitudes, which, does not make sense. So how do you help such a person break free from that kind of limits and beliefs?
So if you're looking for a formula, there's no magic formula. There's no magic wand. Uh, but yes, many people do live a life of avoiding,
Yeah.
and that death may have reminded them of something that may not be the source of it. So with the CEO, where 5 years old, that was the source of what derailed him. So we had to
Mhm.
get. I'm interested in getting to the source. So I understand a loved one dying, but I would also want to understand if that was a trigger to remind them of something that happened before that event. So we'd have to get to the source of that. But it's actually a good example in another way. So you said that if something happens that reminds them of the death of that person, they get
Even any other
upset
thing,
or
even any other thing, they just like to avoid, you know, the thought of
right,
difficult situations. I'm like, you
right,
cannot
right.
keep avoiding difficult situations. This, yeah, the bull, matador.
Well, what I'm saying is that when people often get upset or have fear, it's usually not what's in front of them, it's what it reminds them of,
Hmm.
and they relive the thing,
Hmm.
and so people are generally not upset with you, they're upset about their interpretation of you and what you remind them of, and it's and they may be aware what they think that that response is who they are, and they actually may they may have feelings because they're having an entire conversation with themselves about the thing they want to avoid, and I'm not going to let that happen again. And that conversation tells the brain to trigger neurochemicals like cortisone and other things. And now they say, I feel bad. And they're going to say, well, you made me feel bad. But it's really what they are saying to themselves that's the catalyst for all the neurochemicals that are being secreted. And so then people are stuck with, well, it doesn't feel right, it doesn't resonate, and it's like I'm trying to avoid this thing. And you even ask people about intimate relationships and what are you committed to? What would you like in a relationship? And they can tell you, well, I can tell you everything I don't want. And if you think of it this way, if you're in a room, you point to any corner and saying that corner is everything you don't want. And the person is in that corner saying, I'm never gonna let that stuff come out. But it's like in the other corner is everything you really want. But because
Hmm.
you're focused on the corner that you don't want, you never actually get to the other corner. And then life begins to look hard and it looks like you can never have the things that you want because you're spending all of your committed time to these things that you don't want. And so it becomes like a trap.
I
You
agree.
know, yeah, the mind is a complex tool, but and I see this, the mindset, skill set, tool set, framework is my philosophy. It's difficult to train with mindset. And that's why for me, as a founder, as a CEO, I just love to work with people that align with the mindset that I appreciate.
Mm. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's difficult to train mindset. I've heard people say that, but I don't know where that's written in stone.
Okay. Think about this: mindset, skill set, tool set. Right? That is the order for me in my philosophy for collaborating with people. Right? For bringing people on my team. Right? Because in the past, I've had to pay very, very heavily for bringing on people that have a high skill set or a poor mindset, right? And I realized that you can force a horse to the stream or you can force it to drink. And there are certain mindsets that are good for collaboration on certain projects, right? And it's not like certain people are not good people, but they don't have the required mindset to achieve certain difficult challenges, especially when they are not very much interested in it, right? You have to be passionate about what you're doing. But I'd like for you to speak to that philosophy, right? What do you think is easier to train? Is it easier to train the skill set or train a person to use a tool set or a mindset? Well, for me, I have not found a lot of training people that are unwilling on mindset.
Okay. Se eu quero falar contigo em outro idioma, você pode entender-me, sim ou não?
¿Cómo estás, mi amigos?
No, no, I did not speak to you in Spanish.
What did you say? I don't know. It sounded like Spanish to me.
I know, it was Portuguese.
Oh wow.
I said if I speak to you
Obrigado.
see, yes. If I said if I speak to you in another language, can you understand me?
Definitely not.
Right, exactly. And so it's the same for mindset. See, you don't speak Portuguese because no one gave you that language.
Mhm,
You have the language that was given to you.
mhm,
And if you speak 5 languages, they still didn't give you Portuguese.
mhm,
And if I would have said "Очень приятно познакомиться," that's Russian for a pleasure to meet you. They didn't give you that either. But it doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. You just
Mhm.
have what you were given.
mhm,
People have the mindset that they were given.
mhm,
And I've lived in the jungle with Mayan Indians. I've lived in the jungle with in Costa Rica. I've been to Greenland and Iceland. I've been to the Amazon. And what I saw in all those places and many more in many states in the US, there's one human paradigm, and everyone's been given the same paradigm. If you speak Mandarin, German, English, or French, or Igbo, you still are going through the same human experience, and there's a language within that. And maybe here's a way to express that. So I can have four basketball players, and one guy is really good on the playground. He plays in high school, and he gets a lot of girls, and he plays well, but he just doesn't make it to the NBA because when he plays, he says, "I'm going to get all the girls," and he accomplishes that. The next guy says, "I'm going to make it to the NBA." So he trains to make it to the NBA, and he does. The next guy says, "I'm going to start in the NBA." And he trains, and this guy starts in the NBA. And the fourth guy says, "I'm going to break every record in the NBA." And that's where you get your Michael Jordans and your LeBron Jameses. They're not saying, "I'm going to make it to the NBA." They're not saying, "I'm going to start." And they're not playing to chase the girls. They are training to break records. That's a mindset that's created, invented. It's there are lots of examples in the world where people invented a future that didn't exist. So for Michael Jordan to break records and saying that from high school, he's committing to a future that doesn't even exist. And
mhm,
so this is where those things from the past will say, "Well, you can't do that, and remember this, or your parents died," and you there are lots of reasons but none of that mindset is just as nimble or malleable as water. So there's no such thing as someone who's stuck, and that's why when someone says to me, transforming corporate culture, transforming mindset is difficult, or when people say change is hard, this is what I'm going to ask your listeners to hear. The only reality that exists is the one that you say exists. If you
Mhm.
say change is hard, you will be right. As long as you think that way, you will go out of your way to prove change is hard. If you say it's hard to change corporate culture, you will be right. Now, I'm not saying you're going to just get up and go play in the NBA and break all records if you didn't train and prepare for that. So there is a commitment. If you're really committed to accomplishing something, what's the body of work required in that paradigm to prepare you to accomplish that? Right? There are lots of examples where the facts of life existed. Before, do you guys know who a guy by the name of Roger Bannister is? You should know Ademola.
Roger
Roger Bannister.
Roger Bannister, that name rings a bell. So what is he known for?
Yeah, I can't Google it. No cheating.
I don't know him. It rings a bell, but definitely I'm not a cheat. I really can't remember what he's known for, but I know I've heard that name before. That is
Yep,
why I'm
you
asking
have.
what
He's a
is he known for.
British guy. He's a British guy who's the first one to run the mile in under 4 minutes. And before him, and he did that in 1956. Before that,
Oh,
the scientific fact was it's humanly impossible to run the mile in under 4 minutes. Humanly impossible. The world record for the mile is 3 minutes and 43 seconds. It's the same mile. So he had to break from all the conversations that said it's humanly impossible and train and do things that allowed for 3:59. And when he ran a 3:59, shortly after, quite a few other guys ran it. But that from 1956 to I forget when the current record was made, 2000 something. Um, to go from 4 minutes to 3:43, that's 17 seconds. You can't imagine how much distance is in 17 seconds in a
Mhm.
mile. That's huge. And they believed that it was humanly impossible. See, as long as they believed it was
hmm
humanly impossible, people trained to run 4 minutes, 4:01. There's a guy, 15-year-old boy in Australia running under 4 minutes now.
I'm laughing
That's like
because I've never
unprecedented.
been able to run it in less than 4 minutes. I'm
No,
always
but
doing four
that's good.
plus.
No, that's good. That's good.
hmm
That's good if you can run a mile in four anything, even 4:59 is still that's not competitive, but it's you're in shape to run it that fast.
Mhm.
Yeah,
For sure. I ran
I used to
track.
do 5 minutes plus, but over time, yeah, started going below 5 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
if you
That's
train,
still
if you
you're in
train, yeah,
shape.
hmm
Yeah,
yeah,
you have to train for that. That's not you just woke up one day,
hmm
you're smoking a cigarette and got the beer in the other hand, and it's like, I'm gonna go run a 4 minute mile. Yeah.
I,
Yeah, man. Hold my beer. I got it.
do you know the interesting thing? Noella, should we tell him? Should we tell him? Right. I think we were just randomly speaking earlier today, and I took up a challenge. I told her I would do 5 kilometers in about 30 minutes. I actually thought it was a joke. I stood up and did it. Yes or no?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
That
funny.
that that is me. I love fitness. I love fitness. It's good to be fit, and I believe
So that
if you're
okay.
physically fit and mentally fit,
Right,
it goes a long way.
right. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I've had CEOs tell me that, they still work out. These are retired guys. They talk about the importance of being physically fit.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So do you get what I'm saying? It's like as long as you say it's hard, as long as you say it can't be done, you'll be right. And
Every
I'm not
time, yes.
saying like it's not like a pipe dream.
Okay.
Uh,
Mhm.
do you guys know who uh, damn, Robert Goddard is? You ever hear that name, Robert Goddard?
Robert
Mm,
Carter. I
man,
don't
long time ago,
I don't
about
mind.
100 years ago.
I don't mind Goddard. No problem, Goddard.
So in the 1920s, a
Mhm.
guy, an aeronautics engineer, said one day man will fly to the moon. And the New York Times wrote an article saying, criticizing him, calling him an idiot, and he didn't have the intelligence of an elementary school child, and blah, blah, blah.
No, the guy's an
In
engineer.
1960, I said aeronautics engineer, right? In 1969, they had to write another article to apologize. What he said was one day man will fly to the moon. It sounded ridiculous and
Mhm.
it can't be done. And so he declared this future that did not exist. And as a nation, we grew into it and made it happen.
Hmm.
But we had to train and develop, but we had to develop technology that allowed for it to happen. So it's not an airy fairy pipe dream.
Right.
And this is what people need to be able to distinguish. So
Mhm.
if I told you I'm going to build a machine to fly to Mars next month, that would be a pipe dream because there's nothing in my past to support that.
Mhm.
He just
I haven't
reminded
prepared and trained myself for that.
you reminded me of
Sorry?
somebody. You reminded me of somebody. Okay. When I was back in Nigeria, I had this friend, and I used to tell them, I want you to be a better version of yourself. Like I used to try to push them, okay, try to do this, take this course, read this book. And one day the person looked at me and said, Thank you very much for always trying to encourage me, right? But what if I don't want to be a better version of myself? Like, stop stressing me. Like, I'm not interested. I don't want to be better. Like, I'm okay where I'm at. And then, it it hit me hard that you can force a horse to the stream, you can't force it to drink, And for me, it made me realize that you cannot help a person who is not willing to help themselves. But what would you
Mm,
say about that kind of mindset? There's a fixed
yeah,
mindset and
that's
there's a growth mindset.
that's a really important question. So there was a company that did do research on people who were engaged in workshops doing breakthroughs and those who avoided it, those who went through it. And what they found is that there were quite a few people who would prefer to not have the breakthrough because they thought it would say in the past, like,
Mm.
I must have been really dumb. Like, how could I not have known this in the past? So they'd rather avoid having that conversation, which would question. Um, so let's say they walked around and said, I'm really a smart person and you can't tell me anything. And then they have a breakthrough. It's like, oh my God, I wasn't smart after all.
Mhm.
And that could leave them saying, even though I had a breakthrough, maybe I'm still not smart. So people are left with this conversation in the human paradigm.
Mhm.
Look at it this way. Um, People really want two things in life. Well, they want to survive, right? And one way to survive is to look good or avoid looking bad. And if I
Mhm.
have a breakthrough that makes me look bad because I was not very bright in the past, and maybe I'm not bright now, it's I'm going to look bad if I have a breakthrough. And it's not that the world sees you that way, it's how you see yourself.
Would you say that what you're describing right now, mostly the human paradigm, is why leaders are still reluctant to confront internal breakthroughs? Or do you think there's maybe more reason to that?
No, that's a big one. So, I'm a
Mhm.
CEO, I'm supposed to have the answers, I'm really smart, I'm well accomplished, and, why would I need a breakthrough? I'm already at the top of the food chain. So it's my people, so and I've actually seen this, like, really happen. I used to do CEO roundtables, and I invited current CEOs, and your revenues had to be between 100 million and $1 billion. And then I would invite usually former CEOs, retired CEOs of Fortune 500s. And I've had former CEOs of Chase Bank, Dun and Bradstreet, Xerox, Hires Hotel and Casinos. I've had chairman of the New York Stock Exchange. So when you bring those really heavy hitters to sit down and talk shop about CEO, you get to talk about really important things. And I had a CEO who was still, I had him come in to talk in the roundtable, and he was still the CEO of a Fortune 500. And he said he had the skill of turning companies around, and he had the other skill, which was to drive revenue. He said most CEOs are one or the other. And he said he had both. And he was brought into a company that was underperforming, and he got rid of a bunch of people and brought in quite a few of his own, and it still didn't transform the culture. So then he hired an outside consulting firm and said, fix my people. They need to be transformed. And it wasn't working. So company he brought in said, hey, would you consider you transforming first before we get the people? Who said, oh, no, no, no. I'm the CEO. I don't need that, man. You have to understand, I'm really accomplished. And they convinced him, if you do it, then that will send us very powerful message to the rest of the organization. So he gave in, and he said when he transformed, the rest of the company just went right with him. And he said it was such a valuable lesson that whenever he wanted to go in and transform an organization, he knew that he had to transform himself first
Hmm.
before he could transform the rest of the company. So people are often, God, they're walking around with a conversation about how great they are. And I'm not saying this is all, but sometimes that can hide things that you don't want others to see about you. And
Hmm.
if you admit to transforming, it may be admitting to the things that you're hiding from people. You follow me on that?
Yeah.
And now you're shooting yourself in the foot because you're hiding, and you think there's something wrong. And maybe I'll give you a great example of a person who had a really good company. And one day she said, Ted, why do I always have to be right? And I said, well, maybe when you were about 5 years old, you gave the wrong answer. And she said, oh my God, yes, yes. I was 5 years old. I was in the dentist's office in the waiting area with my mom, and there were other kids with their mom. And the dentist came out and he said, hi, children, who knows what this is? And I don't know whatever that was, but he said, who knows what this is? And she said, oh, I know, I know. And she said, that's blah, blah, blah. And he said, nope. And she doesn't even know what happens after that,
Hmm.
because all she could think was, I was so stupid. I was so embarrassing. I gave the wrong answer. And now she's sitting there feeling bad about herself. And she made a promise. I'll never let myself feel that way again.
Hmm.
So now you put her in a situation, and she's ready to fight to be right because she wants to avoid that 5-year-old incident.
Hmm.
And I want to say all people have that, but they don't know that it's running their life. And I'm talking to this woman, and now she's 45, also Ivy League educated. And can you guess what her occupation was?
A
Um,
lawyer.
Yep,
oh,
trial lawyer.
hmm.
And you know what? If you wanted a lawyer to defend you, she was going to be right. She was going to fight to the death for you. She was
Hmm.
going to be right. She went to a top school, and learned everything, and she comes out to know the law, but now as a president, CEO of a company, leading that way was crushing her people. It was almost like she was a samurai. She just cut everyone's head off.
Hmm.
So people have, this is what gets in a way. of creating breakthroughs. There's this thing that you want to avoid, and it's looking bad. So the way she survived in the world was to be right. Now, what was interesting, and it usually has two sides to it, if you put her in a conversation about finance, for example, she knew nothing about finance and she couldn't fight you to be right. And so, in the moment that conversation is too much for her, it's like clockwork. She would say, "Oh, my tummy hurts. I don't feel good. I wanna go eat." And she would literally sound like a five-year-old. This is a 45-year-old, sharp, very good attorney who now shrank to the five-year-old in the dentist's office because she can't be right about finance. So, it's either fight to the death to be right, or you fake that I don't feel good and my tummy hurts and I wanna go home.
Mhm.
And this is what's running the world.
Yeah.
I have many lawyers as friends, and it was a very easy guess. Like many of these guys, they will fight you to the right, and of course, like I've had the opportunity to speak, on a very personal level with them. I went to university that is considered the Harvard of Nigeria, so like we had
Mm,
multidisciplinaries,
right.
right? So even though I studied economics, I had roommates that were lawyers, and we used to have a lot of conversations and all about that, right? And I love something that you said, which actually alludes to something he said in uh, the session earlier today, and I was smiling, right? Talking about leading by example, transforming yourself first. I spoke about
Right.
a partner I had at PwC, highly respected guy, Tolu Adeleke. He's been on this podcast before, and he taught us something, and he has this quotable quote that has been with me for the and will be with me for the rest of my life. He says, "What is important is not the example of your power. What is important is the power of your example. So it's
Mm,
important to always be
really
by
good.
example." Yeah.
Right. Right. Very good. Uh, so we're so in the current paradigm that we're given, like you're given English and whatever your language is,
Mhm.
this this looking good and avoiding looking bad and surviving by being right and other things in that paradigm, when we want to create a breakthrough, what derails us are all these conversations that we inherit. So that woman in the dentist's office never looked embarrassing. She was not stupid, but her interpretation of what occurred had her see herself in that way and not never want to experience that again.
Right.
And we know these things happen in our lives, but they become like mines in the minefield, like they blow up and they derail us, and we have no way of dismantling them. So we have an entire language that supports us in this paradigm and and tells us how to deal with these situations. It's almost like everyone has a radio station playing in their head that they cannot turn off,
Mhm.
and it's telling them that looks stupid, or that was your dad was a bully, or you're the hero for doing that. And so we have all these conversations and they shape our actions. They tell us what we can and cannot do. And we're left at the effect of it. And even though we know these incidences have occurred in our lives, we don't have the tools to dismantle them and unlearn them. So we're stuck and what you're left with as a conversation is this is who I am, this is just the way I am, and it is what it is. And so what I'm asserting that nothing is what it is. There's an interpretation and there's a radio station that plays that tells you who you are, what you can and cannot do. And then it says, go create a breakthrough. And as soon as a problem shows up that's unfamiliar to you, it's easy to say, well, this doesn't resonate with me. I'm not cut out for this. I'm not meant to be a leader. There are all kinds of things that people come up with. It's like, oh, see, here we go again. This is like being in the dentist's office. I don't know what I'm doing. And so it becomes very difficult to break out to have a paradigm shift when the rules of the paradigm you're in keeps you in the paradigm.
Mhm. And it from the examples that you've been sharing, um, you've shared a few of them now. It sounds like sometimes the paradigm is created based off of either trying to stay away from a certain emotion or maybe even move
Right.
towards a certain emotion, depending on the paradigm, depending on the person. Um, so would you say that, or how would you say that emotional intelligence overall, because I guess it seems like the root of it has to do with emotions and how we're feeling. And so we're running our whole lives either trying to avoid a feeling we felt as a very young child or trying to find more things that make us feel that way, depending on what happened. How would you say emotional intelligence intersects with the work you do as or with disruptive strategy? So when we're moving towards going into the chaos, we said, okay, we're not going to um, operate in paradigms anymore. How do we use emotional intelligence to navigate that?
I think you will not like my answer.
That's okay.
So the quick and dirty answer to your question is it's irrelevant.
hmm Okay. And I guess my next question is why, like, how, or why or how, like, why does emotional intelligence or the connection with our emotions not matter at all when we're moving through it or
You're Go ahead. Or
when we are I would say I guess what I'm trying to say is release from our old emotions or our old emotional ties in order to move through chaos and build this empowerment that we have to move through things we've never been through before.
right. So what you're still doing is you're using the current paradigm to help you get into a new paradigm.
Okay.
That's
Or
that's like stacking more of what you already know and expecting it to get you into the things you don't know.
Mhm.
and I think I like to drop something from the scientific perspective. Using neurology, right? Neuroscience. Uh,
Sure.
you spoke about how the frontal lobe, which is actually responsible for judgment, in the brain,
Sure.
and you have a prefrontal cortex, for example, right? And
Right.
all of the parts of the frontal lobe are responsible for cognitive, behavior and judgment and decision making. So in these paradigm shifts, we tend to use the subconscious mindset, right? The subconscious mind is what basically is activated. And, you sort of have like a shutdown of the frontal lobe, right? So if you're still using the frontal lobe, you're transitioning from what you know to try to you know what you don't know or something, right? I think that's just what I would drop to the table in order to sweeten this conversation. You are the expert, you are the pro, I'm
Yeah.
the Joe. I'm just putting my thoughts out there.
If you notice, you haven't heard me use the word subconscious once, or the word
Mhm.
ego or consciousness,
Hmm.
not once.
Hmm.
That's still the old paradigm, and you're attempting to use all the knowledge in the old paradigm to make a quantum leap, to make a create a breakthrough, and it just doesn't work that way. Those are things that you know. You're attempting to use what you know. Our education system is not good at getting people into the domain of things you don't know. We're
Mhm.
also not good at helping people distinguish between thinking and having thoughts.
Right.
Most people think it's a matter of semantics. They are the same thing. And we can come back to that, but let's deal with Noella's question. Uh, so, what's the source of emotion?
All thoughts are based on beliefs, or our feelings are based on our thoughts, which are based on our internal beliefs. So,
Good. So can you have a belief without a conversation?
yes.
Okay. Give me an example of a belief that is not a conversation.
So if you if I believe that I am alive, or I believe that I am clean, or like I believe my body is clean or something like that, or um you can have a belief about yourself or the world around you, I guess, based off of your own perception. So perceptional beliefs.
So if you say I am clean or I am alive, is that a conversation?
So I think in this context, is
I don't believe
conversation with
so.
oneself
So
actually.
if you say a sentence, you're saying, so are we having a conversation?
Yes.
And is the conversation the result of words being put in a certain order and we call it a sentence?
Yes.
Yes. I would say.
Okay. So how do you have a belief without a conversation?
So I'm asking here, conversation with oneself, is that also in the equation, or you're talking about conversation with outer uh, beings?
Well, if you say I'm clean to yourself, the words never came out of your mouth, but you just had a conversation with yourself, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
So
that's why I'm asking for that,
self-observation.
distinguishing. Yeah.
No, I didn't say self-observation. I said a conversation.
Okay.
Your belief, a belief that I am clean, I am alive, those are all conversations you can have with yourself or you can have with someone else. You can have with anyone,
Mhm.
right? But they're conversations. Those are, you could say another word is those are thoughts that you have, right? But to have a thought, you're having thoughts in the context of a conversation,
Okay.
correct?
Yes.
Good. So when I asked what's the source of emotion, you said beliefs, right?
Mhm.
And I want to get it down to what's actually there. And the
Mhm.
belief is a conversation you have about something, yourself, right? The world.
Mhm.
And so if you have a conversation, and it's really great that you said it because that's where it is. If you have a conversation with yourself that says, I am clean, there may be certain neurochemicals your body secretes. If you have a conversation with yourself that says, like the lawyer in the dentist's office, that I am dumb, I'm stupid, you're probably going to secrete cortisol and you're going to have this experience, this feeling of stress. You can get that, right?
Mhm.
So if instead of her saying in the dentist's office that I'm embarrassing, I was stupid, and I'll never let that happen again, if she, so that those conversations told the brain, this is not good, something you want to avoid, and this is stressful, and let's secrete cortisol. But if instead she would have said, oh my God, this is such a great opportunity. And I'm not saying it in positive thinking, but if she said, wow, I just learned something new today, would she have secreted cortisol?
Not necessarily. Probably not if because
Right.
she's not
So
giving
if she
her
didn't
body that
secrete cortisol,
instruction. Mhm.
right, exactly. She's not giving her brain the instruction,
Mhm.
and her brain will then tell the body what to secrete.
Mhm.
So if the conversation was what actually occurred, she secretes cortisol. If she said, wow, this was such a great learning opportunity, perhaps she could have secreted dopamine and it would have felt great that I just learned something new. Hey, mommy, look, I just learned something new. Do you know what that is? And so instead of me wanting to deal with the feeling, and I know the source is the conversation you have, and then we can go back and reverse engineer where the sort of genesis of that conversation, and then see that what actually happened is very, very distinct from the story you made, your interpretation of what happened. So what happened is you're in the dentist office in the waiting area with your mom. Other children are there with their mom. The dentist comes out. He opens the door and says, "Children, do you know what this is?" I said, "Ooh, ooh, I know." And I said X, and he said, "No." That's what happened. At no point did anything embarrassing, stupid. It never, ever happened. That is your interpretation. That's a whole story. And sometimes some people write an entire novel about what they think happened and how they want to avoid it. And that the conversation in that story is what's secreting the biochemicals.
Mhm.
So if we can like confront that and see the story you made and then have it as a distinction. This is what actually happened. This is the story I made up. And now I can distinguish myself as a human being from the story and what happened. I'm no longer stuck with the story running my life. And I'm going to say, whether it's marriage, whether it's people avoiding breakthrough initiatives, whether it's leaders avoiding transformation, it's the story that people are avoiding. They're not and they have no way of dealing with it. They are aware that the event occurred, but they have no distinctions for being able to reverse engineer and be able to dismantle it and no longer be stuck. So once you can distinguish the story, you now have something that you may have never had in your life is a choice. Do I want to continue to live with the story or am I going to live with what actually happened? And you'll soon start to see how that story has shaped other things in your life. And it was kind of a trap. So it's not the emotion, it's the actual conversation that you made up that became the catalyst for the emotion. So if I only deal with the emotion, I'm dealing with a symptom. And so maybe I have to wait. People talk about how do you hack your brain, or I have to make positive conversations to feel good to kind of cover up the story so that the story doesn't bother me. But if I can actually confront it and deal with it, the story begins to actually lose its power. And now I have the power to act without the story coming in and derailing me. You all with me on this?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
So
100.
at no point did I talk about emotional intelligence. I know it sounds harsh to say it's irrelevant, but I really want to get to the source of it because my commitment is that people are free from the past and they have the power to move forward. And
Mhm.
and so if you don't deal with that, then you have to be resilient. But if you can deal with that, then you can go through it and it's not this monkey on your back that wants to derail you. You can go through. So so here's the punchline. Chaos is not chaos.
Mhm.
It's something occurring. It's something happening. What you say about what's happening can be the story that derails you.
Mm,
So, what we are talking about now is self mastery. We're
Mhm.
not talking about creating a superhuman being because things happen in life, right? I mean, I lost my parents, right? The people have lost jobs. People have had all kinds of situations they don't want to be in. So, it's not saying we're ignoring the things that happened, but it's giving you power or in your own life over about what happened so that when something happens that reminds you of it, you're not stuck with the story derailing you. And so now you have this level of mastery that allows you to go in what people typically call chaos, and you can see like this opening for a set of actions that will support you to get where you want. It's like for the average person, if you want to play baseball and that ball's coming at you 100 miles an hour, it's just like, what just happened? It just kind of looks chaotic. You don't know what to do with the ball coming that fast. But a guy who's trained for that, he has distinctions for that ball and he can see the threads and he knows which way the threads are turning and he knows what kind of pitch it is. And there are guys who see the ball coming and before it even gets to them, they're saying, that ball has home run written all over it. That's
Mhm.
mine. And that's so it's creating that kind of mindset, not a pipe dream, not airy fairy, just do it. There is a training, there's development, it's all of that, but it's actually being able to see openings for actions where other people see their story that
Mhm.
derails them and they haven't been able to confront, dismantle, and unlearn the story. So we finally got to the punchline of chaos.
Absolutely.
Why it's not really chaos.
Yes, yes, yes.
The goal of the goal is not the goal itself, but the person you become in the process of achieving the goal.
Really good. Yeah, the journey is can be more valuable than the final destination. So chaos is never chaos. It's something that's occurring, something happening. Like a 2-year-old wanting to tie their shoes, it could look chaotic, but for a
Mhm.
10-year-old, it's no big deal. And if you're 20 and you're having fits over your shoestring coming loose, people start to have questions. You're 20, man. And
Mhm.
you're freaking out over your shoe having to tie your shoestring. My shoestring always go I can't tie my shoestrings. That's why. I need Velcro. I need a buckle.
Disruptive and will join back soon. Wow,
Okay.
it's just so deep. It's deep, and I appreciate your what I say unconventional philosophy. It's difficult for people to understand the unconventional, right? Or to appreciate the unconventional. If you don't understand it, how can you even appreciate it, right? And
Mm,
how?
yeah.
If you don't understand me, then you stand under me. And like lately in my life, I have decided to ignore like a lot of people and not give, you know, people too much attention. Why? Because I discovered that there are a lot of low IQ individuals. And when I was a teenager, I took the IQ test and I
Right.
was a gifted individual. Albert
I
Einstein
can
is
see that.
146. I am 130 something. That is as a teenager. I don't even
Okay.
know what I am right now. I think I need to take the test again, right? So I guess I should probably be in the 140s or 150s. I don't know, but I know I have a very high IQ. But one thing I've noticed
Okay.
over time is whenever I am speaking to low IQ individuals, there's always a very serious mismatch. And they can't understand what I'm saying. I don't understand the logic behind what they are trying to, you know, argue about because in philosophy there's something called logic, right? Argumentation and critical
Sure.
reasoning, right? For you to
Mhm.
compose a solid argument, you need to have a string of logical premises before arriving at a logical conclusion. If the premises are flawed, then you have a flawed argument. But a lot of people, right, that are low IQ individuals string together illogical premises to reach your conclusion. And then it leaves me confused. I'm like, okay, I give up. If they say anything, I'll okay, no problem. I think
So
that's just where I'm at.
here's here's a challenge with that. Imagine we're back 100 years ago. It's 1925, and we meet a guy named Robert Goddard who says we're going to fly man to the moon. And it's like, well, just
Mhm.
20 years ago, we just started flying. And now you're saying we're going to fly to the moon. And so that would sound illogical, wouldn't it? It would be
Mhm.
like, how did you get there?
Mm.
And do either of you know that cars built in the early 1900s had a top speed of 40 miles an hour? Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Did you
Yeah,
did you kn- did you
because
know why?
in the UK, that's the speed limit for a lot of roads.
But do you know why cars were built with a top speed of 40 miles an hour?
I guess maybe
No,
for
I do
safety
not.
reasons. For safety?
Okay,
Yeah, it
safety.
has to be
I
safety
can see that.
related. Yeah.
Okay. So Noella, you're going to appreciate this. What's the fastest you've ever driven a car, Noella?
Personally, maybe,
One 120?
yeah, I was gonna say
Okay.
fastest 110, 120.
Don't ask
Okay.
me. I'm a speed demon. Don't ask me. Don't ask
So,
me. I've done 200 before, man. Like,
oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah. So Noella, in the early 1900s, you would have been endangering your life. They believed that if a woman traveled in an automobile more than 40 miles an hour, her uterus would explode.
That's very interesting, and
And it was a scientific fact.
science is ever evolving. Science is ever evolving for sure.
Can you imagine the person
ah,
who disrupted that and said, "I'm gonna make a car that goes 50 miles an hour, imagine." And they're like, "You're crazy.
Mhm,
You can't do that."
mhm,
Well, let's get to 100. But no, maybe the engine will make it, but the human body won't sustain that.
mhm.
And now to fly out of the Earth's gravitational pull, you have to travel over 17,000 miles an hour. So
Yeah,
imagine early 1900s, the woman's uterus would explode if it goes more than 40 miles an hour. And a guy named Robert Goddard's, and so 40 miles an hour is the top speed.
mhm,
And when the Wright brothers invented flying, that belief was still there. That conversation was still a fact of life.
mhm.
So imagine an airplane today. Imagine we never disrupted that and our airplanes only flew 40 miles an hour as a top speed. How many people could you put on a plane? There'd be no 747.
Right.
So there are lots of conversations that derail us from possibilities that are beyond what we can see right now.
Mhm.
And so people will say, well, he was just ahead of his time, but it's transforming those conversations, no different than running the mile in under 4 minutes. There are just so many examples. Um, Copernicus telling people that the earth was not the center of the universe. They had a problem with that.
Yes.
He didn't live long because of that.
Mhm. And, we actually we talk a lot about, technological advancement and the conversation around AI and other industries and how it's impacting every industry right now, and it's funny, just earlier, we were mentioning that it's quite interesting, but quite impossible to see where AI is going to move within the next 5 years, next 10 years, because we cannot predict, um, how we underestimate it. And even when we don't realize we're underestimating it, we still are underestimating it. And I think that goes straight into kind of all of the disruption and all
Mm,
of the things that businesses have to face, not even just in AI, but there's no way to really actually plan for it. All we can really plan around is how we move through, or if we're able to go into a flow state during that time and allow the rest of our body to take over and trust the system or the group, or whatever we've built in that system. um it's really interesting to hear that kind of the stance on emotional regulation, because you have a book about love and leadership. And when people talk
Thank
about relationships and love and all of that, um, it's very emotionally charged. It's a very emotionally charged topic. Your book is called Here's Why You Can't Find Love,
Right.
and it actually links relationship struggles to business performance, and you talk about paradigm shifting. What parallels do you see between personal self-sabotage and professional self-sabotage, or between interrelationship when it comes to the romantic aspect and the work you're doing with businesses when it comes to maybe uh, understanding disruption and understanding that chaos is not really chaos? What are the parallels between those two industries?
So lots of them. So, um, the first is a financial impact. So do you know that corporate America is losing $300 billion every year in workplace productivity?
I have heard a similar stance for sure. Why do you think that is, and what do you think the
Well,
parallels of
I
that
was gonna
are?
ask you, what do you know why they are losing 300 billion every year?
In productivity?
Divorce. Divorce.
No, 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 you have to let her see you
Well,
that's yeah.
I'm curious to know if it's because of inefficient or, unaligned workplace relationships, or the lack of quality in workplace relationships, but I haven't been able to do any research on it, so I'm actually very excited and to hear your stance on it.
I don't have a stance on it. So there's an organization called Life Innovation. They did the
Mhm.
research and they found that corporate America is losing $300 billion every year in workplace productivity because of one word, divorce.
Wow. Okay.
So divorce and you can throw in there bad relationships, whether an engagement broke up or a relationship that just fell apart.
Mhm.
And they also found there's another organization that found that when a person is going through divorce, their workplace performance drops by 50 to 75%.
Right.
So imagine a divorce rate of like 53% in the US. That's a
Mhm.
lot of people being affected and being not performing. They're really underperforming. And it's
Mhm.
not intentional. They just have a distraction. And you could say they are in the midst of what appears to be chaotic. They are in a situation they never wanted to be in. Most people do not marry to get a divorce.
Mhm.
I would assume, and perhaps there is a percentage of people, but even if they did plan it, probably didn't go the way they wanted the divorce to go. So there's a fight if there's children, if there are assets, and just the whole uh, dealings and courts and lawyers and all those conversations that are really designed to create cortisol secretions with people.
Mhm. So you are, or the purpose of your book was to really bring light and information and possibly healing to really the insanely damaging financial impact on the corporate world just through divorce and relationships. Are there any um maybe self-sabotage patterns, or professional patterns or barriers, or um transformations between uh relationships into the corporate world that you've seen, or you've been able to witness, or even coach on at all in your practice?
Sure, sure. So the same things that derail you in breakthrough product initiatives will derail you in your relationships. It's really the stories, it's the things about your past that you have a story about, and this person reminds you. Uh, So I wrote the book not to provide information. I wrote the book as a guide and a journey of transformation for the reader. So I didn't write it as this is a TED talk and TED is telling you. I am Ted, and this is a TED Talk. I didn't write it for that. It's written in a way that it's dynamic in a way the reader can relate to it. So it's almost like a workshop. There are 5 women, 5 separate characters who are engaging me in a conversation about relationships. And it's like, Ted, but you're a guy, and how could you see it that way? And doesn't make sense. And so the reader will go on the journey of transformation with the people, and it's based on a real situation. So I read it so that the reader, their perspective of relationships is transformed and they have a greater capacity for being in a relationship. So if we can reduce or eliminate divorce in the US, we can get rid of that $300 billion in workplace productivity because with that much productivity loss, corporations will usually tend to lay people off at some point,
Mhm.
and that affects everyone. So I think I think it's Google, just announced they're going to lay off 14,000 people. That's a lot. So that
Yeah.
means possibly the uh, automakers will lay off people, and then the home builders will lay off people, and the washer and dryer will it's this downward spiral. So I like to contribute to eliminating that. So if you can train your people to be more effective in managing chaos and conflict and problems in the workplace, they will develop the tools, the skills, competencies that they own and take them home and have better marriages. And a big part of it is conflict resolution. So, when we were talking about the woman in the dentist's office, if she gets into a situation where she believes she has to fight to be right, she's in conflict with herself because there's this thing from the past she wants to avoid, and there's something she wants to discuss. And now she's in conflict. So she's in a conflict with the person and not realizing that she's really in conflict with this thing from the past that she's fighting to avoid. That's the essence of conflict resolution. The conflict almost never has to deal with the other person or the situation. It's the conflict you're having with yourself that you want to avoid and you haven't addressed it to be able to unlearn it. And if people could develop that, then in their marriages, the conflicts that occur, they'll find that technically there was never a conflict with the other person. There's something that reminded them, and they went into this whole survival, this thing that I have to avoid, and I'm gonna look bad if I allow myself to go back to that. So I have to fight, I have to fight. And they end up with a divorce when really there was just a misunderstanding and the proper questions were not being asked. There
Mhm.
was more of a defense. They went into defense mode.
Well, that's a lot to unpack. Uh, I think I like to talk about engineering growth through pressure. Pressure the sea makes
Through
diamonds.
wait, you broke up a bit. You said
Uh,
engineering growth,
yeah, through pressure, right? Pressure the sea
pressure.
makes
Okay.
diamonds. Yeah. So,
Mm.
how can CEOs intentionally design healthy stress, right, within their teams to spark innovation instead of sparking burnout?
So I'm going to say that as long as we as a society keep talking about how burnt out people are, we'll be right about that.
Mhm.
Like, we are enabling and telling people to be burnt out. It's almost like we're giving people an excuse to be an underperformer. That's a conversation that really needs to transform. We're talking about burning out because when you put someone in an environment or situation and they say they really love doing this, they'll work right through for hours and never know that time went by. And they'll never say, I'm burnt out. So if you create an environment where people don't know how to address the conflicts they're having with themselves, it's easy to go to burnout. So it's not the burnout we want to address. It's It's the mindset of the people who are more nimble and able to manage what's occurring in front of them. And so that way chaos actually disappeared and it's just something that's occurring and I have to manage that. Right? Pro athletes are really great at this. Like the top athletes, you're a running back. Football can be considered chaotic and stressful. You gave me the ball. These guys are coming to kill me. But you don't lay on the ground and say, "Oh my God, don't hit me." You run right through those guys. And you may have moves, some may be more powerful and they force through, and others can move. They have the agility to take the hit, spin around and keep going. But they trained for that. And there's a mindset. It's kind of like a mindset of running with broken legs. There's this unstoppable mindset.
It's interesting you actually are a trainer of CEOs, and it feels like you took what I say some pages off two CEOs we've had on this show. One earlier today, the CEO of Clipper, he spoke exactly what you're talking about. He said
Mm,
he likes to make sure that people are passionate about the job they do in his company. If you're passionate about something, you will walk right through the fire to get it done. And he said something. He said, I would never work on something I'm not passionate about. If I get bored, I have to switch what I'm working on. And, that speaks to even what we do here, right? Myself and Noella, like, we're passionate about communication, passionate about music. And sometimes we probably like get what I say, um, maybe offers to do something we're not passionate about. And we end up not pursuing those offers because you
okay.
will, that is writing a letter to burnout, right? And the CEO of Ticker, the investment company, it's an investment SaaS tool. He said something. He said his own blueprint is he likes to employ ex pro athletes. Like
Mm,
for you to work with Ticker, you have to be an athlete, right? Because athletes understand, the process, the mindset of doing repetitive tasks. They have the discipline. He doesn't like to train people on the mindset. He gets people who are pre-trained and athletes have that
sure,
mindset,
sure.
ready made. It's a default setting for athletes, and yeah, that's one thing I really appreciate. Even about my own background, I was involved in martial arts very early on in life. From taekwondo to karate, judo, mixed martial arts, and it taught me something. Even till today, I'm always very confident anywhere I go to because I know, yeah, I can handle business. And, it gives me that discipline of being able to do things even when I don't feel like doing it. If I put my mind to it, I can get it done.
Cool.
And another thing is if you doubt me, I think doubt is fuel for me. Just doubt me and you will see me do it. So yeah, athletes actually have, that discipline of getting things done even when it is difficult, and they enjoy that chaotic, process. And there's something with putting yourself through difficult situations, right? Earlier on in this interview, you talked about how sometimes you discover things about yourself. And, it reminded me of like certain workouts. There was a time I used to do easily now, I can do 5 kilometers. Like just like when Noella challenged me earlier today, I just stood up and did 5 kilometers, right?
Right.
But at some point I was doing 10 kilometers. And I think there was a day I think I broke about 15 kilometers, exceeded it. And
Mm,
when you go past 5, that's what you do regularly. When you get to 10, your body's telling you, oh, bro, you're tired. When you stretch to 15, your body goes to a very, very dark place if you've not trained for it before. And,
so
for me,
perhaps
I like to
go
stretch,
ahead.
right? So I want you to talk about it, right? When you go to that dark place and you exceed your record, right? You discover things about yourself that you never before knew were possible, right?
Great.
What's the
So
psychology behind that?
the way to get there is I have to ask the two of you a question. I'm going to present both of you with a relationship, an intimate relationship,
Hmm.
and you have two different people, and the people are equal in looks and like they're equal in the things that you want. But here's what's going to happen in one or the other. In one relationship, it's going to be very passionate. You have a choice between this very passionate person with this person, or you have the choice of a highly committed person, a highly committed relationship with the other person. Which relationship are you choosing?
Are those the only two choices?
Obviously.
Well, if you
So
want polygamy, we can create a third, but
no.
or you can have them both. But this is you. This is about. This is it. This is game time. It's
Mhm.
making a decision. This is a choice. This is your life.
Can I
This
have
you're
the two of them?
choosing the passionate. Yeah, I said if we're doing polygamy, I got it. But you're going to have to make a choice, one or the other. You
Mm.
got to be a great decision maker here. You choose the person who's going to be with whom it will be very passionate, or you choose the highly committed relationship.
Oh.
Which are you choosing? The clock is ticking.
What if I don't choose anyone?
Well, I think it's interesting because it does give a parallel to business and how we were speaking earlier about if they are working in a scope that they are passionate about, then they can work for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, and there is no burnout. In
Okay.
which case, the commitment would come naturally. So
Nope. Nope. You don't. Nope. You get highly committed or passionate. That's it.
that sounds horrible. I want to.
No, but this is life. This is life. Life is about making these
Ah,
choices every day, every second of your life. You're making choices, and this is an
Mhm.
important one. You're choosing that this
ah.
person can be your spouse, and the choice of a
I guess
spouse is the most important decision you'll
hi
make
Ted.
in your life.
Hi Ted. I guess maybe that's why I'm not married till now.
I
That's all
would
right. But
say, yeah,
I'm asking you both to answer the question. It's interesting.
Mm.
You're both struggling with this. It's a very
Uh,
simple
absolutely.
question.
I would,
Very simple.
if it's so we're speaking about a life partner, then I would
uh-huh.
say, and if we know for a fact that the passion would be without commitment, then I would choose commitment. But I do
Okay.
believe that in the right relationship, that
No,
it,
you're choosing between two people. This
okay,
is it. It's really cut and dry. This
cut and
one
dry,
person is going to be very passionate. The other one is highly committed.
then I would choose
That's what
highly
you choose.
committed.
Okay, great. Thank you. Which are you
Me?
choosing, Ademola?
He's
I'll go
choosing
for
highly passionate.
why? Why are you choosing
What?
for me? I think
Well,
No,
go
choose
ahead.
for
I'll go
yourself.
with committed. Yeah, I think I'll go with
Okay.
committed. Yeah,
Now,
because I've seen
isn't this interesting? Isn't this
let me tell you
interesting?
something, Ted. Let me tell you
No.
something,
Wait,
Ted.
wait, wait.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hold on,
Okay.
hold on, hold on.
Okay, no worries.
When the rubber meets the road, when it's really important, what do
Mhm.
people choose? I've asked countless people this
Yeah,
question.
commitment.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Only one person ever said passionate, and everyone else says highly committed. Yet we
Hmm.
talk about wanting to be passionate about things.
Mhm.
When you look at an athlete like Usain Bolt, you don't see a guy who's highly passionate about running, because when that guy trains, he trains so hard that he vomits. When it's passionate, you do it when it feels good. And the
Mhm.
moment it's not feeling good and you're vomiting, this doesn't resonate and I'm out. But when
Yeah.
you're highly committed, none
Hmm.
of that matters.
Yeah.
So the divorce courts are filled with passionate couples. It's
Uh-huh.
filled with them.
Uh-huh.
But I promise you, it's not filled with highly committed couples. because those highly committed couples worked together. They're committed
Mm-hmm.
to making it work, and they
Yeah.
will do the training, preparation, whatever it takes to make sure they understand one another and
Mm-hmm.
work it through. Highly
Yeah.
passionate, there's a feeling I want. And when that's gone, man, I'm having questions.
Mhm.
Maybe this is not, I didn't sign up for this. I'm signing up for the feeling. So in my book, the punchline is love doesn't create a great relationship.
Mhm.
Love is a byproduct of a great relationship.
Mhm.
So if you have the capacity for creating a great relationship, the competence, the skills, the competence to create a great
Mhm.
relationship, and two people are compatible with that kind of competence, you're going to create a highly committed relationship. If
Mhm.
you don't possess those, why should anyone love you?
Mhm.
Because you're going to be incompetent, and all you can do is offer a feeling, and that's it. But that feeling doesn't create a great relationship. It's, are we compatible in the way we resolve conflict? Are we compatible in how we um, manage money? Are we compatible in sex? Are we compatible in how we take care of our mental and physical health? How do we want to raise and discipline our children? How do we want to educate? Like, these are areas that will be consistent over time. And these are these are the reasons arranged marriages work so well, because
Mhm.
arranged marriages require the families to come together, and they're looking for these things to be compatible. Not that, hey, we both like a certain kind of music and we like to party at the same clubs and go to the same vacation spots. Those are things that you have in common that may dissipate as you get older. And then you'll say, we have nothing in common anymore, and the passion is gone. But if you're highly committed, you'll talk through those things. And even where it comes to areas, well, I see it this way, you see it that way, a highly committed couple can operate like water. And water is made of hydrogen and oxygen that come together to make something neither of them could have done on their own.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Be like water, my friend. Bruce Lee.
Yeah. Be like water, my friend. So it's interesting you both chose commitment. So when people talk about, I want to hire people who are passionate, no, I want highly committed people,
Mhm.
because they're going to go through it. And I've hired people who I've asked them to do things and they didn't know how to do, and they were frustrated, and they, why are you asking me to do this? I don't know how to do that. And you're asking me to do something that, is beyond me, and blah blah. And then they did it. They never knew they could do it. They had no passion for it, but then they became good at it, like really good at it.
Mhm.
How do you learn if you can only do the things you're passionate about? How do you learn something new? How do you get to the paradigm of breakthrough and paradigm shifts? Because you're going to be passionate about the things you're good at. And then one day you're obsolete. You're just a buggy whip. You're a horse and buggy, and no one is riding you anymore. Unless you
Mhm.
go to New York and Central Park, they have horse and buggies.
Uh,
But it's
Absolutely.
I'm trying to remember a quote, right? It says, when motivation fails, discipline will carry you through.
hmm,
When motivation fails, discipline, you know, gets the job done. And I have something on my wall here that says, it's not over when you lose, it's over when you quit. And that means a
okay.
lot to me.
Good. Yeah. Very good. Um, there's a quote. His last name is Marquis. Um, it says, "When you make people think they are thinking, they will love you. When you make people really think, they will hate you."
Mhm.
My work
Mm.
requires people to actually think, but the value of actually thinking instead of just having thoughts is so profound that it allows you to see a world that may have been there, and it was right there hidden in plain sight and you couldn't see it.
Mhm.
And so your actions were only shaped by what you could see. And like the guy Robert Goddard, who said, "Will man will fly to the moon," he saw a world that the rest of the world could not see, and it was possible. It wasn't a pipe dream.
Hmm.
It's having access to that kind, Nikola Tesla kind of innovation, to be
Mhm.
able to see possibilities and then take the actions without getting derailed because there are problems, there'll be gaps. Here's where you are, here's where you want to be, and there will be problems in those gaps that you have not seen in the past, and having that highly committed will support you in working through them, as opposed to being derailed and saying it's just not meant to be.
Oh,
Are there any trends or anything that you believe or can think about in regard to predicting future trends for the next generation of CEOs? You have an insane an insane background of working with all types of different CEOs, Fortune 500 CEOs, people that you've collaborated with, teams that you've built, people that you've helped in paradigm shifting. When it comes to the generation coming up right now, do you have any predictions that will define the entire generation coming up? Kind of like someone's going to the
So every
moon or
yeah. So, it's interesting, the Generation Z coming up, you're hearing many of them turn down, management positions because they say, "What's what's going to be demanded of me is not worth the money, so I'd rather, just have a easy 9 to 5." Uh, that could be a challenge, but it also could be the catalyst that starts to train people to be able to better navigate chaos. Because if we have people who are not comfortable with that, and we have too many people who grew up where everyone gets a trophy just for participation, that that creates an unspoken policy, which is you get rewarded even for being mediocre.
Mhm,
And so it takes away the possibility of people running with broken legs, right? So, like, you go in the gym, you work out and you break down a muscle, but that's how you build it to be bigger and stronger. So if people are avoiding that breakdown, what will eventually happen is there'll be a breakdown, and people will have to then deal with that. They will have to lift themselves out of the breakdown. So, um, and participation trophies will not suffice anymore. Like, people will actually have to do the work. So I'm asserting, um, people not having the capacity to deal with chaos and wanting everything to be easy and comfortable will eventually create an environment where they will have to be trained to be more committed, or highly committed, and have a greater capacity for navigating the chaos, which then I would say then creates an organization that, instead of focusing on financial reengineering where you slash jobs and slash expenses and file bankruptcy to, you pay back pennies on a dollar. I'm going to say it the wrong way first. We will focus on um, engineering human capital. So instead of financial reengineering, it's human reengineering, and training and developing people in such a way that they are more facile and more effective in dealing with the chaos that comes. And what I assert will also happen out of that is people will become better in their marriages and their personal lives, and we can mitigate the divorce rate. Right now, the divorce rate is strangling us, and we're pretending it's not happening.
mhm,
And if you think about bad divorces and the conflict it creates, people bring that to the workplace. Even though in the workplace, the difference is they tell you this is business etiquette and you respond to what triggers you at work like this, but at home, anything goes. So if we can, and there's really no training for how to be a good spouse. Anything goes. People will say, "Well, you're getting the best of me, and you're getting all of me, and this is the real me." It's like, wow, I don't want the real you. I want the you that you give to everyone at work. I want that one, right? That
Mhm.
one who's a professional.
Mhm.
Be a professional husband or wife or boyfriend or girlfriend, and I actually talk about that in my book. Uh, so I'm saying that we will create an environment that's unsustainable, that will force people to create an environment that is much more empowering, but it may come out of the darkness of running 15K.
Mhm.
Whoa, that's a very, very dark place. Trust me, pushing yourself beyond preconceived limits.
Right.
I can't express it in words, but sometimes, and this is just me. Sometimes when I do, not just in terms of pushing the body, but also pushing the mind to accomplish certain things. I have been this kind of person who I spit myself in, many challenging situations, many challenges, testing myself beyond limits. I'm a numbers guy. I love to break my own records. And
Good.
sometimes when I break that record, I look back and I'm like, oh wow, you did that shit. And it gives me a new level of self-esteem, self-respect to myself.
Mm.
Like put some respect on my name because, I pushed myself to do that.
Yeah, right, but you have to remember those guys from Kenya and Ethiopia run 26 miles at an unbelievable pace,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
right? And there's a huge mind shift in that. They used to say once you pass the 20-mile mark, it's really rough. And so what would have gotten you to be someone else after 20 miles is a mindset. And you
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
said there are preconceived notions. Oh, getting to 15K is a lot, but uh,
Yeah.
there's a different mindset. Even when I work out, so I've experimented
Yeah. I've done
where it's like,
20K by the way, but man,
oh,
I,
good,
I,
good.
I had to sleep for a whole day.
So
Man, my legs are sore.
when I've worked out, there are parts where it's like, okay, this is the part where it's going to hurt.
Hmm.
And then I create a conversation saying, wow, if I say that, that's what's going to happen. And I'm going to run out.
Hmm.
And just by altering that not having positive speak, it's like, okay, I actually have the power to keep going. If I tell myself I don't, my
Hmm.
my body, my biochemicals will support
Hmm.
exactly what I'm saying, that I'm going to
Hmm.
feel pain.
Hmm.
And it's unbelievable how much power is left in that. And I've just done this with experiments with myself
Hmm.
quite often.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Wow,
Yeah, it's
that's really
so
wild.
important what we tell ourselves and what the stories that we have. Um, it shapes who we are. Um, we're gonna do a quick fire round. So just shoot off a few questions to you. We're gonna go back and forth and see
Okay.
how quickly we can get answers from you. Um,
Okay.
before we do that, I just want to say it's been such a pleasure having you, hearing your wisdom and your expertise, and getting some of that to our audience. Um, we have people that are all different walks of life around the globe. And we love to bring truth from different countries in and really help define that for people around the globe. So this has been such a pleasure to have you to get this insight to business leaders, CEOs, CFOs, entrepreneurs, and or just dreamers right now who are maybe in a startup phase or too scared to even take that first step, but they are working towards that. So thank you so much. So I'll have AI start, and then we'll just
So
kinda go back and forth, and then we'll be able to close out.
Okay. Want to say something really quickly to what you said, and
Of
it's
course.
also going back to your question about the future. And I would say that what businesses need from now and going forward is wisdom. We technically
Yes,
don't need AI. We don't need AI. We need more
You
wisdom
don't need
and
me.
not just the top. We need
absolutely.
more we need leaders who can lead from wisdom as opposed to just short-termism. And
Mhm.
McKinsey just wrote an article about the difference between a CEO leading short term, how do you navigate that and really deal with the long term and your investors. So yeah, it's
Mhm.
wisdom. There's a
Yes,
gap in wisdom.
Oh, the,
absolutely.
the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And for the Lord gives wisdom, and from his mouth cometh knowledge and understanding. So
Hmm.
I'm a very big person of faith, uh, and I know, like, I don't know if other people, would allude to this, but I believe very much in God given wisdom and seeking direction from God. There are times where in our human abilities, human knowledge, human understanding fails us. You know, the Bible says, lean not onto your own understanding, right? And, trust in God in all your ways, and he will lead you the right path. And of course, if any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and it will be given to you. That's James chapter 1, verse 5. Uh, just thought to put that in. I appreciate very much your uh what I say appreciation of wisdom. Wisdom is profitable to direct.
Hmm. Thank you. So let's fire off rapid then.
Yes.
Are you ready to rumble?
There we go. I knew it was in you.
Okay. One book every CEO should read besides your own.
Blue Ocean Strategy.
Blue
Whoa.
Ocean Strategy,
Blue, yeah,
awesome.
Blue Ocean. We in the Blue Ocean already. I love that book, by the way.
Mm, yes.
What's your greatest leadership lesson learned from failure?
It wasn't my failure. It was someone else's failure. And a person who was trained and coached from a VP level to become a president, was hired as the president, had the job, doing well. And the failure came from, this is important for a lot of professional managers. Uh, One of the things that happens when you become president or a higher level manager, the employees will attempt to train you and tell you how things are around here and how they should be done.
Mm.
Once you buy from the employees, as opposed to understanding your job is there to make something happen that wasn't going to happen, the employees are not there to do that. They are there, and this sounds a little bit uh, dictatorship like, but the employees generally are there to keep things the way they are. They're not there to have someone come in and disrupt them and have them do something different. Employees will do their best to tell you this is the way it goes around here, even though you're the new manager, the new leader. Once you buy into that, um, you're no longer a leader in that organization. You're just an employee and you risk losing your job at that point. So I've seen someone get the job and lose it because they allowed the employees to train them on a lot of different things, and it just wasn't in their best interest at all. So that was a failure that I saw, and an important lesson for any person going into a new organization, especially in the C-suite, that um, you go there to understand what's happening and then make your plan for what's possible in the future, as opposed to letting the employees tell you the way it's going to be.
I love
Absolutely.
that. Chaos or order, which breeds the most creativity.
Neither. It's your perspective of the playing field.
Mm, I love that perception and
Who's
perspective.
who's the most disruptive leader alive today?
Elon Musk.
That was the answer on my mind.
Some people may say Trump, but Musk.
Mhm.
Okay, if leadership had a soundtrack, what song title would define yours?
Music is not advanced enough to be able to make a song for me.
Whoa,
They would have to
no,
have a paradigm shift in music to do that.
no way. Okay, we will we will come up with a song. Don't worry, we're musicians, and we'll send it right to you. You will get that song in your email. But of course, thank you very much. We highly appreciate you. When a person shares their time with you, they share their life with you because they expect you for measure and like this time. So love and of course massive respect to you for joining us on the show today and of course sharing nuggets upon nuggets. We can't wait to have episode 2. Over to Noella Rook.
Yeah, again,
It's
just
been
thank you so much. Your wisdom is invaluable, especially in these times of uh participation trophies and not really wanting to do the work or really seeing the value of doing the work. You're helping massive teams in business make shifts that people spend their whole lives dedicating themselves to and trying to figure out how to do within their own awareness. And you're kind of speaking on a completely different level. So I think it's so insightful, so valuable and essential for everyone to take in this type of knowledge in their own personal lives and again in their relationships because we are the extent of our relationships and it has a global impact for us as humans. So thank you so much for your time and your wisdom. Truly appreciated.
no, thank you very much. It's been my pleasure to be here with the two of you. And thank you for asking such great questions that allowed for a really insightful conversation. So thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you once more. And of course, to the audience, always go for something in your life. Conceive, believe, strive to thrive, and achieve. God bless you guys.